Hello, I'm Mr. Adema, and this is my friend Bo D. I'm sorry, that's the worst joke I've ever told in my life. But we're going to teach you about the digestive system today, from top to bottom. So here we go. Imagine that you eat something that has proteins, carbs, and fats in it, like a Snickers. And the first thing that will happen is your highly mobile lips will grasp it and pull it into the mouth, and then you've got teeth to chop and grind it up. Incisors to chop, and cuspids to tear, and bicuspids and molars to grind. You also have a muscular tongue that's going to move the food around, and it has the taste buds in it. And you're going to secrete saliva into the mouth so that you can begin to taste the food, but also saliva has two things in it. Amylase, which will begin to break down the carbohydrates, that's an enzyme, and mucus, which is a protein that will bind smaller food particles together. So after you break this food down and chew it up, the mucus will bind it together into a small wad called a bolus. Alright, so we'll turn Bo a little bit towards us. Once the bolus is formed, the tongue will push it to the back of the throat and initiate the swallowing reflex. The soft palate's going to rise up and seal off the nasal cavity, and the tongue's going to push the food into the pharynx, and peristaltic waves are going to send it down. The epiglottis will fold over the trachea, and the esophageal sphincter will open up, and food will head down the esophagus, being pushed in a process called peristalsis, where the waves contract behind the bolus and squeeze it down. At the bottom of the esophagus is another sphincter, and that will open up, and the bolus will fall into the stomach. The stomach is a large J-shaped pouch, and we can begin to look at it here. If I take these lungs and these hearts off, esophagus is right here, and it empties into the stomach. The stomach is where we're going to have gastric juice being secreted from the stomach glands, from the gastric glands. Gastric juice has mucus in it to protect the lining of the stomach. It has pepsinogen in it, an inactive enzyme that's going to be activated. It has hydrochloric acid in it. Now the pepsinogen comes from the chief cells, and the mucus comes from the mucus cells, and the hydrochloric acid, HCl, comes from the parietal cells. That mixes all together with the bolus and creates something called chyme, just kind of a food and gastric juice mixture. And when the hydrochloric acid mixes with the pepsinogen, it will turn into pepsin and activate, and that's an enzyme that can begin to split apart proteins. All right, so we had the beginning of carbohydrate digestion with amylase in the mouth, and now we have the beginning of protein digestion right here in the stomach with the pepsin enzyme. Once the food has been mashed and it's sufficiently liquefied into chyme, the pyloric sphincter at the very end of the stomach will let little bits of chyme into the small intestine. All right. Now the first part of the small intestine is called the duodenum, and it's about 12 finger widths long, and a whole bunch of stuff happens here. The pancreas right here will secrete a whole bunch of digestive enzymes and mix in with the chyme, and that's going to begin the digestion of everything else. More proteins, different types of carbs. There's a lot of different enzymes in pancreatic juice, and they're going to mix in with that chyme, and it's going to travel through the small intestine. Something else that mixes in here, the liver makes bile, and it's stored in the gallbladder, hiding right underneath the liver. And when you eat, a whole bunch of bile mixes in with the chyme too, and bile has a lot of salts, and those salts help to emulsify the fat. It means break it up into really small droplets, so that your body can absorb a lot of the fat that it needs. So as this mixture of enzymes and bile and chyme flows all through the small intestine, the small intestine is circular and folded and compact, but it has these microscopic structures called villi, these little hills back and forth, back and forth, back and forth that increase the surface area. And there's a lot of simple columnar cells that line a villi, and they each have these little microvilli on their tips. So there's a lot of surface area inside the small intestine, and all of that surface area is designed to come into contact with the stuff that's being digested and absorb it into the body. So this mass of fat and blood vessels here is called the mesentery, and it's pulling out all the nutritious nutrients that we want and all of that's going to pass to the liver to get filtered before it can head over to wherever other cells in the body need these nutrients. So that's a nice system right there. After we've absorbed and pulled in all the different nutrients that we can, the small intestine comes to an end, and we have the beginning of the large intestine, the cecum, as well as the little appendix hanging off there. The cecum at this point, chyme has no nutritional value to us. We've had the opportunity to get everything we want out of it, but we still have a lot of water left in here. We mixed it in with saliva, we mixed it in with gastric juice, we mixed it in with bile, with pancreatic juice. We don't want to lose that much water. We're land creatures. We don't live in fresh water, so we conserve water. So as the chyme is passing through here, it's called feces, and the whole point of the large intestine is to pull and pull and pull water out of the stuff and put it back into our bodies. So it's getting drier and drier and drier. And there's bacteria here too that are eating the things we couldn't and actually produce some vitamins for us. So this does absorb a few vitamins. And by the time it gets to the end, the stuff is brown and lumpy, and it compresses and it hangs out in the rectum and turns into poop. And my boys are off camera laughing about this. And when we're ready, then the anus muscles will relax and we'll squeeze that poop out. And that is digestion in 5 minutes. Have a good day.